Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to give you guys a few little tips on how I like to highlight. I'm going to give you guys some do's and some don'ts, what's good and what's not good to highlight, and I hope there's something you're interested in, and please keep on watching. So quickly before we start off, I just wanted to mention that sometimes I do change up the areas that I highlight, because when you highlight, you emphasize areas, and certain days you might have texture in certain areas or a breakout. So it's not a good idea to go over those areas with a highlighter, because that's just going to bring out all that texture or bumps or whatever it is. So there are days that I highlight certain areas and certain days that I don't. So just keep in mind that the areas that you highlight are obviously areas you want to highlight and bring attention to, and it's going to bring out any imperfections that you may or may not have. So just keep that in mind before you start highlighting. Days like today, when I'm wearing a full face of makeup, I obviously highlight differently than I would on a day where I'm not wearing makeup. And I usually use a bigger, fluffier brush for that, because I just want it to be like a nice sheen. I don't want it to look too perfect. I want it to be kind of messy. And it always looks nice when you, even if you don't have makeup on, believe it or not, just to have a little bit of glow. It just makes you look nice and fresh. But today, where I am wearing a full face of makeup, I'll show you the areas that I like to highlight. And I also use different highlighters depending on how much makeup I have on, or if it's a natural day, a no makeup day, or a day like today when I have a full face of makeup on. So today I'm going to use my Hourglass Ambient highlighting palette, and it looks like this. It comes with 3 colors. These are the type of highlighters that I like. I don't like highlighters with a lot of glitter. I like them to go on really natural, whether that's not that natural, but I still like it to look natural on the skin. I don't like them to be too harsh. I don't like them to be too glittery. I like them to be just perfect. So this is definitely a highlighting palette that I highly recommend. So on days like today where I'm wearing a full face of makeup, I like to highlight obviously my brow bone. And I do that by using a small fluffy brush like this one. It's just more precise. And I dip into my highlighter and I highlight. Okay. And I highlight the area right there underneath the brow bone. And the reason why I like to highlight this area is because, first of all, it looks nice with all the eye makeup you have on, but it also brings attention to your eyebrow and it gives you a little bit of a lift. And that's why I like to highlight that area right here. Like that. Next up, using my favorite highlighting brush. This one is my favorite, like I said, my favorite highlighting brush, and it's by Sigma. It's called the High Cheekbone Highlighter, and it's the number F03. I love this highlighting brush. And next up, what I always highlight, even if I'm not wearing makeup, I use this brush for that. So today, when I am wearing a lot more makeup, I like my highlight to pop a little bit more than on a no makeup day. First up, I'm going in with this one right here, and I leave that right here on the high parts of my cheek. I don't like to drag it down too far, and as you can tell, sometimes you do have a little bit of texture right here. Everybody does, and on days where I have more texture than others, I obviously like to either use a softer highlight or maybe skip it. But yes, I always like to highlight right there. And then right here on the center, I go in with the brighter highlight in the middle called Pure Strobe Light. And I just tap that once, and I leave that like right there in the middle, just to give a little bit more pop on the center, like that. And of course, we repeat the steps on the other side. Dipping into that brighter one right there. And of course, what this will do is going to bring attention to your cheekbone, and it also gives you like a nice sheen right here on the cheekbone where the light naturally hits you, and those are usually the areas that you want to highlight. And then also sometimes what I do is I drag it up on top of the eyebrow right here, because again, that will lift it up a little bit. I don't necessarily recommend that if you have oily skin. I have combination skin, so I tend to be dry on this area. Throughout the day, I can get a little bit oily on my T-zone, but nothing major. So I'll just tap into it really, really light and leave that right there on top of my eyebrow, and sometimes drag it down like that. I don't know if it really picks up on camera, and I don't want it to be a beaming highlight. I just want it to be a natural little sheen right there. Basically what you're doing is creating that C shape, and like I said, this will kind of lift up your eyebrow a little bit, create that illusion at least. There you go. I also like to highlight the tip of my nose, and I like to do that by using my finger. I dip it in and I just lightly tap it like that on my nose. It just creates a little bit more of that button nose effect. It lifts up your nose a little bit, and you can drag it up the nose as well. I only do this when I have a full face of makeup on. Like that. Okay, this is usually where I personally highlight. I'm also going to show you guys a few little tricks. For those of you who don't have full lips, I personally have pretty full lips, so I don't need to highlight. But a good little trick is on a smaller, more precise brush, you can again dip into that highlight, and you can highlight your Cupid's bow. And then let me just wipe off a little bit of my lip balm. And then with a fluffy brush, you can actually highlight on top of your lips as well, or even using your finger like that. And that just creates a little bit of that pouty effect. And then lastly, where I like to highlight, especially if I'm wearing a shirt or something like that's open like this, I like to highlight my collarbones. I just think it looks really nice when you go out and you have on a shirt or a dress that's a little bit open. I love to highlight areas like that. It's kind of hard because I'm trying to look in the camera and make sure I'm highlighting the area I want to highlight. I like to go up a little bit, and then on this bone right here, I don't know what it's called, but the bone right here, I like to just pop on a little extra like that and drag it up. I just think it looks nice in pictures. Again, personally with highlighting, do not go overboard. I know right now highlighting is all the trend and people go overboard and the pictures look so nice when they're all propped and they have the right lighting, but you can't use too much highlight or the wrong color and it just looks off and it doesn't look natural. Even when you're wearing a lot of makeup and you're not natural by any means, there's still a way to make your makeup look nice and natural even though you're wearing a lot of makeup. And like with everything, if you go overboard with it, it just has the complete opposite effect. So these are usually the areas that I like to highlight when I go out, and like I said, even on days that I don't really wear makeup, there are areas that I highlight, and I'll show you really quick. This is the highlighter that I love to use when I'm not wearing makeup, and it's the Essence Pure Nude highlighter. I love this highlighter so much. This is actually the highlighter that I wear every single day unless I'm wearing a full face of makeup. I love this highlighter because it's so natural, and what I do when I'm not wearing makeup, I use a fluffy brush like this, and say I only have on mascara or not, whatever. I just dab that into my highlighter and I drag it right here like I did now, like that. And then I take with the same brush, I dip it back in and I just go straight up into my brow bone like that. And it just looks so nice. Even when you don't have makeup on, this particular highlighter, it doesn't look like highlighter. It just looks like you have a nice, glowy, fresh skin. So personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with wearing a little bit of highlighter when you're not wearing makeup. There are definitely highlighters that I recommend over others when you're wearing no makeup, little makeup, or a lot of makeup like today. Oops, and I actually just forgot something, and this because I don't highlight there all the time, only when I'm wearing makeup, and sometimes not even. There are days that I don't like to highlight it, but today I'll do it for the sake of the video, of course. And again, I'm switching back to that smaller, more precise, switching back to that smaller, more precise brush. I dip that in and I highlight the corners, the inner corner of my eye. And of course, what this will do, it's gonna make your eyes pop a little bit more. It's gonna make them appear a little bit wider and a little bit more awake. And this is only something that I do when I'm wearing a full face of makeup like today. Like that. I love highlighters. It's definitely one of my favorite beauty products that I cannot live without. I switch them up all the time. There's so many highlighters that I love. I do have a big variety of highlighters and I do use quite a few of them. Sometimes I forget my favorite ones because I tend to buy a lot of new highlighters all the time because it's so popular right now. And every time they promote or rave about a new highlighter, of course I have to go buy it. So sometimes you go back to your old highlighters and you remember why you love them again. But yeah, I do also think it's important that you use up your makeup and actually use what you have, because we see them on social media and we think we have to have them, and of course it is nice and I do it myself. Trust me, I have probably like 80 highlighters, but I do think it's important to use the makeup that you have. You don't always have to go and buy new highlighters, because a lot of times, to be honest with you, I get disappointed when I buy a product. So I should really just stick to what I have and what I love and use those up, because we do spend so much money buying makeup, right? So yeah, you guys, these are the areas I like to highlight on my face, on my body. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that you learned a little something. As always, if you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Other than that, have a great day or night wherever you guys are, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!